guys, Mike here, and in today's video we're going to look at brass catchers. Now there are generally two basic groups of brass catchers. There are those brass catchers that are remote from the firearm and those brass catchers that attach to the firearm. Now the remote brass catchers are designed to either sit on the bench top or attach to a tripod, and they're fine if you're sitting at a stationary shooting spot and you're shooting at a stationary target. You can find them for somewhere in the range of about $50 up to about $150. But for me, I'm moving around and shooting at different targets, and they just didn't work that well for me. So in today's video, we're not really talking about the stationary type of brass catchers. We're going to be looking at brass catchers that attach to the firearm. Now, there's a very wide range of price when you start looking at brass catchers. You can get brass catchers for $10 or less, and you can pay over $200 for a brass catcher. What I'd like to do in today's video is look at what's available in the market. I'll start at the bottom, then we'll go to the top, and then we'll spend most of our time in the middle. So let's start at the bottom. This particular brass catcher is made by UTG, and basically what you have is a rectangle, a net with zipper, and then a Velcro strap that's designed to position the brass catcher where you want it. So if we take a basic AR-15 style rifle, the idea is that we're going to position the rectangle over the ejection port and then use this strap and Velcro to hold the brass catcher in position. The problem is that they will shift and move in position. It's kind of hard to keep it in the proper position. I can tell you that you will get bounce back. What happens is this rectangle will get out of position and the brass will bounce off of the inside or the edge of this rim and get back in your chamber and jam your gun up. I have found a good use for one of these. I'll show you later when we're talking about a different brass catcher. I would not recommend these just based on my personal experience, but there are those out there who really like these and find that they work adequately for them. But I think it's reasonable to consider investing a little bit more money if you want a good, dependable brass catcher. Now at the other end of the price spectrum are two companies that make very high quality but very expensive brass catchers. I don't own either one of these companies' products, but I have spent a lot of time looking, researching, watching videos, and considering whether I wanted to buy one of their products. These two companies are Tactical Brass Recovery and Leave No Trace. Now, the very top model from Tactical Brass Recovery cost over $200. The Tactical Brass Recovery models require that you have a rail that's side mounted and so many inches, I believe 6 to 8 inches depending on the model, in front of the ejection port. The newest models from Tactical Brass Recovery have a hinge in the front and you can swing the brass catcher out of the way. The more basic models that are less expensive in the range of $70 to $100 just depend on basically bending the plastic that it's made from out of the way if you need to see or inspect your ejection port. The Tactical Brass Recovery brass catchers are high quality and high capacity brass catchers. The Tactical Brass Recovery brass catchers do fold partially, so there's still a lot of bulk out here, but when they're not in use, they do partially collapse so that there's less bulk beside the rifle. TBR brass catchers also have zippers on the bottom of the bag so you can empty the brass without removing the device. The Leave No Trace brass catchers come with a delta ring adapter. So they have an adapter that goes around the delta ring and provides an attachment point laterally. Their brass catchers range from about $130 to $170. You can buy extra delta ring adapters. The extra adapters sell for about $40. The Leave No Trace brass catchers are very high quality. They are very bulky. They have a large square collecting system on the side. It does not collapse during storage, but the bag does easily slide out and detach for emptying. It doesn't have a zipper on the bottom of the bag. Now, I haven't personally been able to bring myself to buy one of these top tier brass catchers. I have basically three issues. One is obviously the price. 2, both of these systems are fairly bulky. And 3, they both require either a delta ring or the side rail. I think, if you have the money and they seem to fit your use, then certainly they're going to be very dependable, high quality products that should last a very long time and serve you well. So now we come to the middle ground. In the middle ground, prices range from about $30 to about $60. And there are basically 3 companies that produce a mid-range, good quality brass catcher. They're Caldwell, 3 Buck Incorporated, and E&L Manufacturing. E&L Manufacturing produces a rigid plastic brass catcher, and they basically have 2 types. One is like this, they are made for a specific gun. And then the second type they make is a universal flat top, and that is a brass catcher that comes with bars like this, and then the device is made so that you can attach it to the bar, and you put these on a flat top receiver. Now the specific model brass catchers run about $40, and the flat top universal models run about $50. And for the flat top model, you can get spare mounts that are about $25 for a pair. So these are good quality. They do a good job as far as catching the brass and not deflecting the casings back in the gun. They're durable, but there are some issues with these. For one, you can't empty the brass catcher without removing it from the firearm. The E&L AK brass catcher looks very nice. It's going to catch that brass and it's going to function the way that it's intended to once it's mounted. For this particular firearm, it doesn't get in the way of the sights. However, you'll notice the cocking handle is inside. If you're going to use this particular model, then obviously you're going to have to charge the gun with a round, put it on safe, and then you have to attach the brass catcher, and it snaps on fairly easily, but you have to take it off again and snap it on again. I'm not wild about the concept of having to charge this gun ahead of time and not being able to access the chamber area with the brass catcher on, and having it be fairly difficult to get out. And I don't like the concept of not being able just to leave the brass catcher on and empty the brass catcher through the bottom. But they're high quality, they do the job they say. But one thing I would say, if you're looking at these for a specific model, make absolutely sure that you're comfortable with what this device is going to cover up on the gun. If you have any other accessories on the gun, make sure that the accessories aren't going to interfere with the mounting of this product. The other specific for platform E&L brass catcher that I have is this one designed for the Steyr AUG, and it just clips on the back. It's just behind the safety. This is a fairly easy to attach functional brass catcher. There is enough clearance to comfortably shoot the gun with the brass catcher on. And even though there are drawbacks because you have to take the brass catcher off to empty it, this really doesn't interfere with this particular platform. And I think the AK and the Steyr AUG platforms are 2 good platforms to consider the E&L style brass catcher. I like the model that they make that's called their flat top universal. I have modified one of their flat top brass catchers to work with this strike upper. Now what I've done is, this is their universal model, and I actually cut the bottom out, and I used one of these cheap UTG nets, the bags that has a zipper on the bottom, and then just glued it to the bottom of this device. And so I've modified this to work specifically for this strike belt fed upper. This will fire a 200 round belt, and Now the volume of this brass catcher will hold 200 spent casings and 200 disintegrating links. And then the zipper is here, so I can just empty it out if I don't want to take the brass catcher off. Now there are two other brands that we want to talk about. The 3-buck Brass Saver and the Caldwell. And the Caldwell is designed very much like this 3-buck. Now you can probably tell from the introduction to the video that the brass catcher that I use the most is this 3-buck brass catcher. Now there are some similarities and differences between the Caldwell and the 3-buck, and I'd like to just discuss those. First is the price. This 3-buck with one adapter is about 60 bucks. The Caldwell can be found for about $40 or even a little less. Now both of the systems use an adapter that goes on a flat top rail. One advantage the Caldwell has is that the attachment point to the adapter, this part of the device, can be moved from front to back so that if there's a problem with the optics that are mounted to the gun and this is in the way, you can put the adapter in between the rings for a scope, for example. Using the 3-buck system, the adapter needs to be in the front of the upper receiver. If you had rings or a scope that's cantilevered and the mount is in the way of the front of the upper receiver, then this system wouldn't work. So one advantage to the Caldwell system is that adjustability. And obviously there is a price advantage, it's a little less expensive. One disadvantage is the material they use for the bag. The Caldwell is less heavy duty compared to the Brass Saver from 3-buck. A lot of people have complained about the bag. They use a nylon mesh for the bag, and a lot of people have complained that hot brass has actually melted holes in the mesh bag and caused the bag to fail. This is a canvas cotton type material, and these brass catchers have seen thousands of hot brass cases, and I haven't had any kind of failure. Another difference between the Caldwell and the 3-buck is that the 3-buck uses Velcro on the bottom and the Caldwell has a zipper. But most of the mounting applications that I'm going to talk about with this 3-buck, you could apply to the Caldwell as well. With the 3-buck, if you want extra mounts, you're going to pay about $20 each. And with the Caldwell, you can get an extra mount for about $15. This is very well made though. It's Darylin, it's machined. The screw system appears to be very durable. Now, one thing that I have done to try to save money as far as buying extra mounts is I have taken the mount, for example. This is one of the reasons why I like this. It's so versatile. I can mount this brass catcher on multiple firearms as long as I can get a flat top adapter. And what I've done for this example, I've actually taken a small 1/2-inch riser and put the mount on the riser, and then I have a quick detach mount. Now it makes the device, the brass catcher, about a 1/2 inch higher, and that won't work in all applications, but in a lot of applications it will, and it saves me having to buy as many of these extra mounts. But for example, for this short barrel rifle that's a semi-automatic 9mm HK style gun, I have a flat top for my optics, and there's still room for me to mount this adapter, and the height is still fine as far as being able to catch the brass and not have any problems with brass bounce back. And so you can see it's just a very nice system. The mounts themselves are very unobtrusive when they're left on a gun, and it works very effectively for this platform. I've adapted it for many different platforms. This is a Lage upper receiver for an M11 submachine gun. There again, you can put the mount on here. It's just not in the way, and it's very easy, very effective way to mount a brass catcher. Now, one thing I would say with this Brass Saver, in certain applications, you can't really go all the way in. Like there's all the way in, okay? And in some applications, for example, with an EOTech is fairly wide, and what happens is when you try to put this brass saver in, since it's low and wide, it actually hits the brass catcher and keeps it out a little bit. But now I can tell you that this works fine. With just this amount of resistance, the brass catcher will stay in place under fire, even with full auto fire, and there is no issue with this being not all the way in position. I can't attest to the Caldwell system. If you put the Caldwell system on the mount and only put it 2/3 of the way in, I'm not sure how tight that would be. I don't have any experience with that, but I can tell you certainly with this system, it does work if it's not all the way in place, and that does come into play in several applications. Another application, this is a HK style TD 415, and the upper receiver is actually a little taller, but there again, it's not an issue with this. It functions very well. Now, if I used my little homemade riser and put this on here, then I think it would be a little bit too high, and you'd probably have some bounce back issues. And so this would be an application where you'd have to just bite the bullet and buy an extra mount if you wanted to keep the mount on it. Well, I hope you found the information useful. If you did, please consider hitting the like button. Remember, I'm a consumer just like you guys. I'm not trying to sell you on any one particular brand or product. If you have any questions or comments about what we've talked about in this video, please post them and I'll try to respond to those in a timely fashion. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.